and thanks for joining us on Live with Squacky today. I'm so excited about our special guest, Rosie O'Toole, today. She's a voice actress, and we have so much to talk about, so we're going to jump right in. Thanks for joining us today.
Well, thank you, Val, for inviting me. This is a real pleasure. I'm very excited about it.
Me
So
too.
thank you for having me.
You're welcome. So let's start out by having you tell us your background and how you got started in the voiceover industry.
I actually have an undergrad degree in communications and broadcasting from The Ohio State University. And actually, I did 3 years there and then transferred up to Chicago to finish. But really my initial start was that I am the baby of 7 kids.
Wow.
So I grew up public speaking. I mean, in order to be heard, I had to get my message out and let my voice be heard. So I grew up large gatherings, being able to talk in large groups. We were a group of kind of singers. Anyway, I grew up as a performer. Graduated from college and just have kind of had a microphone in front of me ever since. I actually taught group exercise and aerobics for, about 20 years. And with that, I still had a microphone in front of my face and was still giving directions. So it's like e-learning, but in shorts and a tank. So I did that for a long time. And the outgrowth of that is I went to work for the state of Virginia doing health and wellness presentations for state employees. And I did e-learning for that as well. They knew that I did it, so they'd call me in to do voiceover for certain projects. And I was actually in the HR department, and I have a specialty certification called SPHR. And with that certification came a wealth of e-learning because I actually understood the subject matter. You know, if you were to talk about disability benefits, I really know what that's all about. Anyway, then I have a friend in New Zealand, an author that I followed, and I was helping her with a part of a book. And I said, have you ever considered doing this in an audiobook? And she's like, no, I don't think so. And she said, I just can't hear it in my head. So I did a little snippet of it and sent it to her because I could do a New Zealand accent. And she loved it. And that was how I got into audiobooks. And I finally, then the light bulb went on and I thought, you know what, I think I could do this full time. And I left my job, took that leap of faith. My husband's like, oh, but it's worked out. So it's worked out.
That's great. That sounds like such a good start. That's exciting.
It
So
was fun.
you talked a little bit about audiobooks and e-learning. Are those the genres of voiceover that you would say that you specialize in?
Yes, I do. Audiobooks are kind of my bread and butter, the royalties that I get off audiobooks. And I do per finished hour, which is nice. The one thing I like about even e-learning and audiobooks is I can get into the material quite a bit.
Right.
And just, I love chewing it and digesting it and coming up with different ways to say it. So that has been what I've been focusing on. And then as an offshoot of that, I've started some other different projects. So
Cool.
yeah.
So tell us more specifically about your real estate voiceover work, because that's something that I saw on your website that I was really excited about.
And that has been kind of an interesting progression. And again, it's storytelling, but what I do is I take a realtor's photos and I don't necessarily work off the videos they have taken of the house, but I can take a realtor's photos and add voiceover to them. And I even add the music. So I bring in the music track to it and do 2.5 minutes of a virtual tour of the house with the voiceover.
Cool.
And it allows me to really point out things that a buyer might miss or that a real estate agent really wants to bring out. And what I'm finding as I talk to realtors about this and get more business, thank you very much, is that buyers nowadays are used to more of a multi-dimensional experience. The days of kind of flipping through pictures to look at a house, we've become as a society much more into having hearing the voice and having all that come with it. And so realtors are thrilled. Some have tried to do it themselves and realized that it's not as easy as they thought it would be.
Yeah.
But I take with the pictures, if I have the pictures that they've had taken, I have the ability to hold on a picture for 7 or 8 seconds and really get across what the realtor wants. And then sometimes we flip through a little bit more quickly, but with the program that I have, I can do that. So
Cool.
it's like I get to go into people's houses without leaving my house.
That's
So
exciting.
it's for voiceover,
Mhm.
but I do love
Fun.
it. And it's such a new thing that actually I've got a networking event tomorrow with a group of realtors that have asked me to come and present it, because it hasn't existed that I know of. I know people do it. Mike Cooper does it in North Carolina. He and I have chatted about it. But a lot of times that's when they already have something in place. But the realtors that I'm dealing with don't really, they didn't even know it existed. They didn't even know they could have that done. So
Yeah, and that must be a huge market. So that's something really cool that you've tapped into, because every realtor that has a website or whatever, you know what I mean? Like there's so many realtors now. I feel like that's a really great, you've kind of tapped into a really good genre there. So that's
and
cool.
and houses tell a story. They just, there are houses that are more homey, there are houses that are more sleek and have more style, and I love doing the entire production of it.
Hmm.
That's probably where my background with my undergrad degree, I learned some of those techniques. But to be able to tell the story of a house in a 2 minutes or 2.5 minutes, um, has really been fun. It's been fun, and it's been appreciated, and hopefully that's going to grow.
Yeah, definitely. I think it definitely will. So it looks like from exploring your website that you've done some on-camera work too. Is that something you're still doing?
Um, I hadn't been doing it for a while, but I am going to start doing that again. So I had somebody that was on their VO roster asked if I'd be interested in getting on their on-camera roster, and I'm meeting with them on Wednesday.
Oh,
So
exciting.
I know it's exciting. I'm actually going to go get new headshots done and everything.
Nice.
I, I had kind of given up on that part of it, but it's kind of coming back. Why not?
Yeah.
And a decade ago, I did a couple movies that were based here.
Oh, cool.
Got my SAG eligibility through it, so it's always just kind of been hovering there.
Yeah. I feel
I
like there's a lot of work out there for both sides of the industry, for on camera and for voiceover. And if you do both, it just kind of like expands your resume a little bit. And if you've already done it and you already have experience, why not? There's no age limit anymore, I feel like, on anything in this industry so you got to go for it if your heart is in it. And if you're having the opportunities, you might as well. And you're Richmond based, right? Are you
Yeah,
Richmond based?
I'm in
Yeah.
Richmond.
Yeah, so that's a great area of Virginia to be based, because you're close enough to like Charlottesville, where there's a lot of work there, and also in Richmond, a lot of stuff is filmed there. And then, of course, you're not that far from DC. And
Hmm.
so, yeah, I feel like that's a really good place to be.
And I was talking to somebody in LA last week, and they said, "Well, you're in DC, right?" And I said, "No, actually, I'm in Richmond." And they said, "As far as we're concerned, that's DC."
Yeah.
I'm like, "Yeah." Okay,
Okay, yeah.
plenty of work. It's just tapping into it. And I feel like going into back on camera is just opening my pipeline a little bit.
Yeah,
And
I think it's a good idea. I'm excited to
part
see
of
what you do with it. Yeah.
the Virginia Production Alliance, the VPA. So
Oh,
there's opportunity out there. It's just tapping into it and letting people know I'm here. I'm here, just like
you're
I used to.
here.
Table. Rosie's here.
Awesome. So I was very interested to see that on top of all of your other talents, you're a children's book author as well. So tell us about that.
I am. I had the opportunity, shameless plug, to write. And actually, the way this came out, it was my dog and my cat. And my dog and cat were best friends. We would walk the dog. The cat would come along with us.
Aw.
And the neighbors were just enthralled with it. And especially this little girl that lived down the street just adored it and always ran out and talked about it. So I thought I need to make that into a book. And I was able to tap into a really young artist that lives here in Richmond named Chelsea Kerwath. And she did all this in #2 pencil.
Oh,
So
wow. That's so
anyway,
cool.
yes, so she drew about my cat and my dog. Mr. Binks is my cat, and my basset hound, Daisy. So I came up with it, and a publisher said, you know what, we will take those books on. And so the 2 books came out. It's just been one of those, I always am most comfortable just outside my comfort zone, Val.
Mhm.
So sometimes I fall off. But I always, it made me a little bit afraid and just outside my comfort zone. But I have had so much fun with it. I've read in front of preschool groups, and I've had kids that have requested it or taken it to school and said, this is my favorite book. And then the teachers asked for books for the class and bought books for the class. So it's just a really sweet little story about 2 pets that love each other. So,
Oh, that sounds really sweet. So
and that I
cute.
miss right now because they're now both passed. But
Oh,
yeah, so it's
that.
there. It's
But at
been a
least you
very,
have the books to remember them by always. So that's exciting that you have
yes.
that. Yeah, and they would be happy that you wrote about them. So.
And it's the story, the kids, it's just a nice, sweet little kid's story that about, and the nap is all about how they sleep. And parents seem to find it really helpful to put their kids to bed too,
Oh,
because
that's good.
but it was so much fun. It was so much fun to do. It was nerve-wracking. There were times when I was like, why am I putting myself through this? But anything you do, like that is
Yeah,
scary.
I think it's all part of the creative process, and being a creative person, and it kind of goes along with that because I think a lot of people, that are in voiceover, that are actors, that if you have that creative side to you, there's oftentimes things that you're able to tap into that you might not have initially realized. And so I always think it's fun to explore that. Like I'm not good at drawing, but I'm good at writing. So I'm writing like my own children's show, animated series and stuff like that. And so it's just like you have to sometimes find ways to get that creativity out. And yeah, that's it. That sounds like it was a good way for you.
I had not thought about that, but I like the way you framed that.
Yeah.
I like the way you framed that. That's it exactly. It was just a real way to put a story down on paper, as opposed to telling it with my
Yeah,
voice.
because I think you can make it very personal. You can take certain aspects of your life and things that you've experienced and put them down in a way that's a story that other people can relate to. And I think that's so important. I think that's something that, kind of like singers tap into that if they're able to, express emotions and feelings that people can relate to, then I think their songs are more successful. And the same thing applies to writing and to voiceover. If people can relate to a topic that you're talking about, that kind of helps them to connect to their feelings and emotions, then they can get more out of it.
And there are quite a few actors that are also artists. Now that I think,
Yeah. Yeah, definitely. I think a lot of those things cross over in the industry. A lot of them cross over. A lot of people are doing multiple things because it's just part of that creative process, you know?
It's kind of crazy growing up in a house with voiceover people and act or creatives. Because I'll be working on an accent and the kids are like, "What are you doing? We're gonna be
Yeah,
Irish today, okay?"
exactly. I know. I
My husband, who is a businessman and deals with my creativity, in fact, gave up his walk-in closet so I could make a studio for it.
Aw.
So very supportive. He actually is much better at accents than I am. So
hmm
the other day I was having to do for an audiobook I was doing, I had to do a Scottish accent. And I go into his office, I'm like, quick, say something in a Scottish accent. I've lost it. And he goes, I learned a lot about. I go, that's all I needed. Perfect. But it's crazy how this life is crazy. This
It
is a
is.
crazy job.
It is crazy. And I think that if you're not in it or you're not a creative person, that it's hard to look at it from as an outsider and kind of relate to it. But I think that there's so many ways that you can take what you're doing as a voice actor and relate it to your family so that they get it. Or, you know, like you said, practice different accents around the house. Or like we do improv a lot. I do improv a lot with my kids, you know, because my daughter is in acting class, and my older daughter, she's 10, she's in acting class, and then my younger one is into super into music, so she's like singing all the time, you know, so they kind of got that creative side. But I think it's fun to see how you can take that creative side and relate it to other parts of your life. Like I'm also a French teacher, so I'm always trying to bring the voiceover thing into it in a certain way, you know. And my students are like, "Oh, that's really cool that you do, you know, you do voice acting too," because they don't expect it, you know, because I'm a French teacher, so it's like they don't always totally get it, like the other
Mhm.
side of it. But I remember being in class one day and they were doing like they had to do like research on this on a news article. They had to find a French news article and then report back on what they found, right? And you know how kids in high school are, they're like, they don't want to talk out loud because they're embarrassed and what if it's wrong and whatever, you know? And so I remember kind of giving feedback after they did their read, you know, like they're getting feedback on a voiceover. And I'm like, okay, that was great. Now, on this take, I want you to do it again, and this time I want it to be a little bit louder. I want you to project like you're on stage. And they're like, "What is she doing?" I'm like, "Guys, just remember, this is only this is only 50% of my life. The other 50% is an actor. So you've got to take direction. If you can't take direction, this is going to be a tough class for you." And they're like, "Oh my gosh, what is happening right now?" It's so funny, you know. But like, it helps me because sometimes I have to take that part of my life and find a way to relate it to what else I'm doing, you know? So it's,
And I also teach well, I teach English to Chinese students
oh, that's
through,
cool.
through a company called VIP Kids. And part of the reason I did it was because I realized I was spending way too much time in my studio and not relating to the outside world all that much. That was number one. Um, it has, but number two is it's a nice little income stream that I can count on because you know
Yeah,
and I think that voiceover people, we all are like, oh, I do this and that. Most of us have a side gig where we can, if we needed more income, if I need a new microphone. Um, anyway, it's something I do is on the side. And first of all, love it. Second of all, it gets me out and about. But most importantly, it has helped my voiceover so much
yeah,
because when you're up there, I have to engage the student. And it's one-on-one. So, but I have to engage the student. I have to elicit a response. Um, it's truly acting. When I'm sitting there trying to get them to say it's cold outside or I'm scared, and and could do complete sentences, but it has been such an enriching experience. First of all, I'm talking to Beijing with sometimes or Shanghai, and to see their little faces and the reward that comes from that, it's kind of it's like we're ambassadors in a way.
yeah,
uh, because a lot of times I'm the first English or American that they've met. Maybe not American, but they've met, but at least interacted with.
Mm-hmm.
But to turn on the acting, and I realize times when it's improved my diction. I'm from the Midwest. I don't really feel like I have any other accent other than that middle America sound, which is one reason I've done pretty well with this. But and especially with the VIP kids. But I do catch times when I might have a little diphthong that shouldn't be there, because those kids repeat back exactly what you say. So if I tie on to something a little too long, they repeat it back. And I'm thinking, I'm going to put that back in the back of my mind for when I'm reading copy, that I
Right.
don't do that, and make sure I don't.
So, you're also a skilled audio editor. This is something that many voice actors struggle with. Can you give us some tips here on what equipment and software you use, or any tips to help voice actors who might struggle with their editing?
Yes. And part of this is because I studied it in college. When I came back in to do this full time, my learning curve was much shorter because I knew the technical part of things.
Yeah.
If you're doing long form narration, learn punch and roll. Punch and roll is where, and I use Studio One because it's a great punch and roll software, and I can hear what I stop if I make a mistake, click it. I can hear the tone and the pacing that I had just leading up to it, and then I can seamlessly start again. And I even use it for auditions sometimes if it's tough copy that I might trip over, and that way I can do that. Or if it's any copy that I might trip over. So learn punch and roll, because that will save your editing time in spades. As another general tip, edit in a batch. People tend to edit, I'm going to edit just this phrase, and they don't, even if you try to do the same editing later on in a 60-second bit, it'll sound different. You got to do the whole 60 seconds.
Okay.
And I learned a lot and access YouTube. People ask questions, and I'm thinking, let me Google that for you.
Yeah, exactly. There's so much on YouTube, right?
For a lot of people, we over process things before we send them in, because there are editors that do that.
Mm-hmm.
But I also use an RX7 mouth declick, which really has been a lifesaver for me, because I have tricks to get rid of clicks. Because we're from the East Coast, and I think Everett Oliver said this to me. Have you worked with Everett? You've
Yeah.
been
Mm-hmm.
yeah. Because I'm from the East Coast, I enunciate very clearly. We're out on the West Coast, they don't, right? So I enunciate really clearly, and there are times that comes across as a click. And this is just something I know about myself. And that RX7, and you can get an RX6. I just have paid up and have a kind of a more expensive version. Oh, I love it. I can put it across it, and all those annoying little clicks and extraneous noises can go out. And that's not really a good process. That's not normalizing, or I have a system, and I had somebody create a stack for me, so I don't have to do it each time. Actually, I created my own stack.
Mm-hmm.
Where it equalizes and does a whole bunch of stuff. If I want to turn it into something that is a finished edited version.
Okay.
But RX7 is just great.
Cool.
I got it from Sweetwater.
Love
You'll
that
leave it
place.
with my undergrad degree being in broadcasting, I can get right up on the mic.
Yeah. I need to take some lessons from you on editing for sure, no doubt. Yeah. But
I get a little excited about it. I'm weird.
yeah.
I'm like, oh, this is so cool. And that being said, I still have somebody professionally do my audiobooks. I don't,
Yeah.
because by the time, here's the thing, and I'm sure we're all alike. If I do an audiobook or I do something that's long form and I start to listen to it myself, to edit it myself, I end up redoing part of it. I'm like, I could have said that a little differently. Yeah.
So switching gears a little bit, who have you trained with as far as voiceover coaches go, and is there anyone that you'd like to recommend?
I coach with Sean Pratt. And I specifically went to him for my e-learning. I wanted to grow my e-learning business, and he really has helped me quite a bit. Sound more real, break it down. He also does quite a bit on business. So I coach with him. We call him the Ginger Yoda, and I'm so proud of the Ginger Yoda. I'm going to graduate soon.
Exciting.
Exciting because it is a lot of homework, but in that homework is where the meat is. And it's a great feeling. I've admired him for a long time, and it's a great feeling when he says, you did a bang up job on that, or that was excellent. I'm humble bragging a little bit, but it's really nice to get somebody you admire that much to say, you don't have to worry about doing this part of it because you got that down. I was
Yeah.
like, who's he talking to? The first time I met him, I fangirled for like 20 minutes. I'm like, you've got to think about what he's actually saying to you. He has taken you on as a student, But so him, Julie Williams, I have had great experiences with Julie. I belong to the VO Peeps, so I work out with Anne Ganguza once a month. And oh gosh, I've realized now that there's quite a few because there's so many great people in this industry. So many,
Yeah.
such a wealth of knowledge out there. I do a WOW with Larry Hudson. I do a weekly workout with a group on WOW called the WOW Workout on Wednesdays. And I sat that out for a while, but I am back at that. So every Wednesday we upload 2 scripts when we're broken into groups of 5 fellow VO actors, and we work out for an hour and 15 minutes. We run through the scripts. They ask us to change it, do it a little different. Sometimes it's stuff we're auditioning for. Other times it's just things that we want to work on. And but that, I would say, Anne, Julie, and Sean. Oh, yes. Avo, I took all Tom Deere stuff.
Yeah.
I was like a sponge.
Yeah.
I'm like, it's so great to go to conferences and really get a great experience out of it. And I felt like Mavo, every session I sat in, I just learned so much from it.
Well, thanks. I'm really glad that you enjoyed
Yeah.
it. I don't even have words to describe how great it was. Like 2018 was for sure, like, I was really happy with the people that I, hired as guest speakers, and everyone was so, like, all positive feedback. And it was really, but it was just really, like, I was so happy that everyone had a good experience, because that's what you want, like, because I'm coming at it from the perspective of a voice actress myself. So it's not just a random person who puts an event together. It's like, what am I going to get out of this, but what are my attendees going to get out of it? So I think, hearing, you know, uh, hearing you say that you got a good amount of information out of it is really important. So that's the goal. Yeah.
And I think that when it comes from a voice actor's standpoint, the topics were things we deal with. I took Gabby's session on sounding more real because that's been an obstacle for me.
Yeah.
I can very, I could sell furniture, but I needed to lighten up and sound. And boy, her little workshop on that, I picked up so much.
Yeah.
For making myself sound more genuine and more real. And I think that the topics that were chosen, because the business and the people you chose, was spot on. And if I was going to give anybody else advice who's planning something like that, it's get somebody who really knows what voice actors are dealing with and what
Yeah,
their obstacles are. Marketing is an obstacle for people. It's
it's
hard.
huge. Yeah, it's huge. I think, between, and I think I say this in like almost every episode of Live with Squacky because it's honestly true. Like Tom Deere and Mark Scott, like they're just two of the most outstanding people in the voiceover industry. Together and separately, they have, the business and the marketing side of it completely covered, because they just they have such a wealth of knowledge. And I don't think people realize until you're actually sitting there with your paper to be like, oh my gosh, I need to write down every single like word this person is saying, because it's everything I can use to make my voiceover business better.
I came back with sheets of stuff that, okay, I need to do this and I need to do that. And Tom and I met afterwards. I had a session with him after it so we could kind of go through my demos and this. I mean, just the nicest, most genuine people. I
Yeah.
mean, Mark Scott would, give you free advice Fridays. You can ask him anything and get
Yeah.
feedback. It's just amazing. I won a session with Sarah Jane.
Oh,
So
amazing.
coaching, and I'm doing an X session. I'm headed to VO Atlanta.
Nice.
Can't wait. And I'm taking her X session with Sarah Jane. I don't consider myself an animation person, but it's kind of
But
coming around. It's kind of
yeah.
coming around. And because Everett said on Monday, I would he was just very compliment. I think the actress in me kind of came out. I was tired because, if they're from the West Coast, we're doing it like 9:00 at night, right?
Yeah.
And he brought up something. He's like, and I just was like, I never considered myself an animation voice. But Val, it's kind of coming in. I don't know.
I think that there's a lot of people that have it in them and just don't realize it until you have a coaching session with someone who knows how to pull it out of you. Like Everett, amazing as far as a coach goes. And what I love about Everett is that he's so genuine and honest and such a kind person. Like he'll give it to you straight, like what what the hell was that? Like do that again, or like dig deeper. Like I know you can do more. He'll pull it out of you, but in such a nice way that it's like you want to do better because you want him to love what you're doing, and like he will have you like relate to real life people and be like, who do you know that's like this person you're trying to portray, this character you're trying to portray? And I love that because it makes you think about like, who do I know that's like this character, and how am I going to take that and relate to it? And I love that about him. And then with Sarah, it's just, I mean, Sarah is so the same. Like, she knows how to give you direction. She's a casting director. She knows how to give you direction to get exactly what she needs from you, and that's their job, but I mean, I think you should definitely not close the door on animation. I mean, I think everybody has characters in them, and it's just a matter of being able to pull it out,
Everett asked me if I had an animation demo, and I said, no, I don't. He goes, you should.
Yeah, do it.
So that is a goal this year, is an animation demo.
That's my goal this year, for sure.
Is an animation demo. So but I did love his telling me to look, who would you be saying this to? And I said a neighbor, and he goes, no, not that person. Think of someone else. And I went, and he goes, that person. That's the person you're talking to.
Exactly.
And it totally changed my performance, my female superhero performance. Totally. And with Sarah Jane, hers was really getting me. She's like, I want you to tell me about the scene, and really getting me into the scene we were rehearsing, and to put myself in, as opposed to, well, it's kind of like this, it's embodying it more. It
Yeah,
was, we just, there's so many different ways to come at this career. And I think that's why I love it so much. I
yeah,
love it because, and it seems like all of our experiences end up heading us into one direction, ultimately. You
exactly.
know, my real estate stuff, it's all the editing that I've done in the past, and everything just coming into it, just all marries together, and that's makes it so much fun.
Yeah,
And the fact that there are so many different things feeds the creative side of us. So,
definitely.
um,
There's so much.
and obstacles in every job, but so much fun.
Definitely. And it doesn't seem like work, you know? It doesn't seem like work. When I'm, you know, going to do an audition or I've actually booked, you know, the job and I'm doing it and recording it, I get so excited and I love it so much. And that's why like people are like with the conference, they're like, "Val, what? You know, how?" Like just people don't understand. They're like, "You teach French full time, you're a mom, you are a wife, you have like a, you know, you're a voice actor, you do like how, like where, how do you do that?" And I'm like, "I don't know. Just it doesn't seem like work to me." So I could literally spend like 24 hours of, you know, like the entire day working straight on stuff for the conference or for voiceover, and it doesn't seem like work to me. I don't get tired of it because I love it, you know.
And
You have to love it to do it because you're not always you're going to get more no's than you are yeses out of auditions no matter what. Like no matter how experienced you are, no matter how great of an actor you are, you're just, you know, you'll go through, I think you go through phases. I think for me at least, I go through phases where I'm booking everything and then I'm like maybe not auditioning for a while, or I'm auditioning and for some reason I'm not booking anything, you know? And it's like, I don't know necessarily what happens in that time, but I think that a lot of voice actors I've talked to have gone through that where you have times of the year when you're like, I'm booking everything, I'm booking nothing. And you have to sort of balance it out and be able to say like I can take these ups and downs, you know, because they're going to be there all the time. So it's just part of the industry. Do you feel like that? Do you feel like you have times when you're booking everything and times when you're
yes,
like, yeah,
nothing. And there are times when I feel like I don't have anything concrete to show. You
yeah,
when you build a house, they're like, oh, look at my house. And sometimes I do stuff and there's nothing to really show for it. It's like I spent all day and it's out in the other world, you know,
right,
or it didn't get used. Um,
right, same, yeah, exactly,
but what amazes me about um, this is I'll sit in the studio and work and all of a sudden realize 3 hours have passed.
yeah.
I'll be like, I gotta get up. I gotta move a little bit. I have been so focused and so loving it that I don't realize it. Or when I was at a brick and mortar job, I was like, oh my gosh, how many hours? You know,
I know.
there's that, it's a much better feel. It's a
And
much better.
it all goes back to that creative process of being that type of person where if you are doing something that you love, it doesn't feel like work, you know, and that
Mhm.
creativity allows you to be able to put your talents to work, you know. And I think sometimes people are working a job where they might be talented at what they're doing, but if they don't love it 100%, then it's not going to come across.
And I think so many of us have that side job. You might not see it at VO Atlanta or Mavo when you talk to people. You don't realize that they're retired from
Right,
something else. They
right,
have a solid source of income, or they have a spouse that's very supportive, or they teach VIP kids in the morning, or they do something else
right.
feed feed themselves
Exactly.
themselves, but that it's all comes from the same place. We are whatever else we do, we bring it to the voiceover. We bring it to the industry. You know what? Your teaching French makes you a better voiceover actor. You certainly can relate to kids or
Yeah,
teenagers.
for sure. Teenagers. I don't know if that's a good or a bad thing, to be honest. Because I find myself using Urban Dictionary way more than I want to. I'm like, I don't know what that means. And they're like, Mademoiselle, how do you not know? And I'm like, seriously, can you hold on while I Urban Dictionary what your entire sentence just was? Like, oh, what is that? Like,
Because I said to my husband, well, you know, she works a B&M job. And he goes, I have no idea what that is.
I wouldn't know what that is either.
It's brick and mortar. And I don't know where that somewhere on social media,
Right.
which is like the bane of my existence. But
seriously.
but B&M, brick and mortar, it's a brick and mortar job.
I'm writing it down because it's one less thing that I have to, look up later. It's fine.
Look up later, brick and mortar.
So what would you say the two of your major goals are that you'd like to accomplish this year? You said we already kind of talked about one of them, and you want to do an animation demo. Let's talk about what other goals you have this year.
I really want to grow that real estate portion of my business. If I were to have a dream client, I guess would be to be the go-to person for a real estate broker, where when they list a house, as they're going through the listing process, they send me the pictures and I narrate their voiceover.
That sounds great.
That's what I want. So that's my goal this year, is to get enough solid business where I'm the go-to person for it. It's such a new concept that we're not really there. But I believe we will be.
I think you can do it. Yeah, I think like I said before, I think you've got something really solid there that could really help you to expand. So I think that's exciting.
And it fits well with my voice. I guess it fits well with anybody's voice who sounds clean. I don't know. And there are super sleek houses, and then there are the country houses that are light and airy, and so. But that's my goal.
Definitely.
Is to do that. And with the animation, it's playing with all the accents. So I'm going to focus on accents this year and get some of those accents down.
Yeah, I definitely think, I think for an animation demo, you want to have anywhere between, I don't know, 10 to 15 like solid characters going into it for animation demo. And then if you might not use all of those on your actual demo, but if you have a good solid 10 to 15 characters that you're able to perform really well, and then somebody like Everett or Sarah can tell you like this one is good, you definitely want to have someone, before you go in to record that animation demo, you definitely want to have someone who's like, this is working for you, this one's not, and Everett or Sarah, or you can even sit down with me and I'll help you with it. But yeah, like you want to have really good, solid characters before you go into it, so that you can, because it has to be like really fast paced, because you have like a minute to do it, and it's so short, a minute and 10 seconds or a minute and 15 seconds is such a short demo, but you have to have a lot of versatility in there, so that they can see your range and your ability to perform a lot of different characters in a short period of time. And so, it's good.
And that is something I love about voiceover, because the director will be like, could you do it slower? Could you do it snarkier? Could you do it? And that's when the fun begins. Like, oh yeah, I can be snarky.
Yeah.
And just playing around. I think that's where animation in particular is kind of, I never really expected it, but that's kind of coming in where people are saying, could you do this character? And I do characters in audiobooks. It's just making them come alive for animation.
Yeah.
So
exciting. Yeah. So, how do you feel about social media for voiceover? And tell us what you use and why and how.
Uh, well, I'm on all the platforms. So I do the Facebook. I do the Facebook. I sound like my mother. I do the Facebook. But I do Facebook and Instagram and Twitter. I find if I were going to look at a challenge and an obstacle, media for me can be quite the challenge. Not going into the rabbit hole of, you know, if it can take, I think, oh, I'm going to check and I'm going to post, and an hour and a half later, I'm still doing stuff on it. Um, it's not a natural for me. For a lot of people, they can just post an Instagram thing and come up with the perfect little caption and hashtag it and be done. It doesn't work that way for me. I have to work a little harder at it. But also, I think it's doing us a disservice in a way. I know it's how we get our name out, and I know I've converted it into business, so I know that happens. But I think for people in general, it's kind of doing us a disservice because you only see the bright and shiny things. You don't necessarily see the stuff that's not working. So if you were to look at social media, you'd see, oh, I got this job and I booked this job and I'm so busy. But you don't see when they're not, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
So that, you don't see the stuff that hasn't worked, or there are people that post that, but for me, it's been something that I've had to come to grips with, that, I've got to put stuff out there and be out there. And I have been able to convert it with realtors, see my work, and they reach out to me because I can do this from anywhere, right? People can send me pictures from California and I can put together a narration with music and send it back. So I have converted it. It's just one of those things. And to be on all the platforms and make sure that I don't invest that much time, I should instead be spending my time on much more direct marketing, I think.
Yeah.
And I know that pull. So it's like, oh, I'd much rather send a cold email out or cold call somebody, I think, than post on social media. And I know that is probably not a popular opinion, but that's my reality. That's my
Yeah. I
reality.
mean, I think it can be really time consuming. And so you have to kind of, like for me, I have to set limits for myself on how much time I'm going to spend on social media per day, because I could spend all day on it and not even realize, like a little bit here, a little bit there, and then hours later you look at your phone usage time and it's like you spent 4 hours and 35 minutes on social media. Like, what? Like when? And then, and then it's like, okay, maybe you need to get this under control now. Like, you don't need to spend that much time on social media, but it's like you're checking it and you're looking at it and like, just let it go. Just disconnect for a little bit. And sometimes I force myself to completely unplug, and I'm not good at doing that because it's the nature of our business to be constantly on, especially with a small company, being a small business. If you walk away from it completely for a while, you're like, oh my gosh, what if, something happens and I need to react to it? But the reality is that probably nothing major is going to happen while you're not checking it, and the world is still going to go on and it's going to be fine. And so, when I look at my phone at the end of the week and it says, you spent, your social media time is down by 15%. I mean, that's good. Like, good. Turn your phone completely off and just walk away from it for a while. I'm horrible at doing it, but I think it's really good for people to do that.
And I look at, LinkedIn, there's ways to get the word out there and your name out there and everything. But at a certain point, I have to be like, okay, I can only take this much of a chunk. If I look at this big a chunk, I get overwhelmed. So it's targeting that market,
Yeah.
as opposed to blanketing everything. Because
Yeah.
between LinkedIn, Twitter, Instagram, Facebook, Reddit, we could go we could go on and on.
Yeah.
There are a lot of platforms.
And so I think, when people ask, like, should I use this or that? I'm like, yeah, if you're going to use it for voiceover specifically and not put anything personal, then use Facebook. But don't put your personal stuff out there. And that applies to every social media platform. Do not put your personal information out there. Instagram is a different story. If you have a private account that you're going to use for putting your personal stuff, that you limit who can see it, that's a different story. But if you're having a business account, a public account, don't put your personal stuff on there because anybody can see it. And if you're okay with that, then do it. But if you're not, like if you want to get new clients for voiceover, then you have to keep it super focused. And the same applies to Twitter. You can't put random stuff, you know?
And
People are like, what's that?
all of the platforms, they can't all just suck your time. I mean, I could, and to blanket post across all platforms is kind of, I don't know if that's serving the right purpose then, but there are a lot out there. And I think by the time I know what I, as an entrepreneur and a freelancer, what I need to focus on and what I need to get comfortable with. And I would say, you know, if I look at LinkedIn and Instagram, that's where I'm going to convert business.
Yeah.
You know, Facebook, I don't know. I can get my word out, but I feel like those other two platforms are ways I'm going to do it. Although people have told me they got work off Twitter, you know, that the word, but really it's getting the word out. It's getting your messaging out. I'm here. I'm available. This is what I do. I can, you know, I have a mission statement which talks about I'm going to provide quality voiceover. I'm going to be so good they can't ignore me.
Exactly.
That's my thing.
That's
you know?
your goal. That's everybody's goal, is to be so good they can't ignore you. And I think the thing with Twitter is, the thing I like about Twitter is that it's an easy way to get your message out to a lot of people really fast. You know, it's you know, it takes a long time to build your following. If you're going to have an organic, authentic following, don't buy followers. That's ridiculous. You know, but it takes a long time, you know, on Twitter and Instagram. It takes a long time to build a true organic following. But if that's what you really want, if that is what your goal is, then take the time and put your time into it.
You know, I wouldn't have met you. I think of how it's made our world so much tighter and smaller. And I was at an event and people are like, oh, I saw your Instagram post about your dog in the laundry. My dog does that. And, you know, I have an old beagle. I have two dogs, but my old beagle loves to sit in the studio with me. So I'll let her while I'm doing stuff. But if I'm recording, I have to kick her out because she's a snorer. Sleep and snore. So I kicked her out and she hopped onto my fresh laundry and slept there. So
Aww.
it is
So cute.
Nice. And anyway.
Yeah. I mean, we could go on and on about social media, but it's out there. And I think, you know, guys, you just have to really try to have a strategy to using whatever platform you're going to use, and then just kind of stick to it. You know, just if you want to be on LinkedIn, keep it business oriented. If you want to be on Twitter, make sure your following is good people. Filter it every once in a while. Don't just let anybody on there, because you don't want to have, you know, internet trolls and whatever. You don't want to deal with that.
Targeted. I feel the same way with marketing. It has to be targeted. If you just throw it against the wall and hope something sticks, you got to target. And I kind of feel the same way with social media. Target on what you think you're going to be able to convert, where you want your message, your particular message is going to be cleanest and go with. So
definitely.
That's where I am.
So let's finish up by talking about what you're working on now that you're allowed to talk about.
Well, and I just finished an audiobook, and that went up to Audible's quality control. So I took a day off, which is important.
It is.
I felt this much guilty, and then I'm like, no, I'm going to take Friday off. But tomorrow I meet with the realtors, and tomorrow afternoon I'm doing another narration over a house that's coming on the market on Wednesday. Great. So this week I'm going to do that, and I'm going to do telephony for a local group here that asked me to do their IVR. So, so press 1 for customer service. Press 2. But it's so they're not big jobs, but it's work. I
It's
like
work.
work.
It's work.
It's
Yeah,
work.
definitely.
It's work.
Exciting. That's
So
nice.
that, and I've got another long e-learning project coming up, but that is a little NDA.
So have you you said you're going to Voice Over Atlanta, that's in March, so that's exciting. And do you have any other upcoming like workshops or conferences that you plan to attend after that?
For this year, no, I'm torn about APAC. I kind of want to go to APAC, but I've also been offered a trip to Hawaii.
Oh,
APAC, Hawaii.
let's see.
APAC, Hawaii. So, and
Yeah.
so I think I might head to Hawaii
Sounds
for
like a
2 weeks,
good plan. Yes.
and I'm not sure how that's going to work with APAC. I'm sorry, VO Atlanta. I can't wait to see people I saw at Mavo or that I saw at the Voxy Summit last year, a year ago. Um, I'm really looking forward to it. And I've
Good.
signed up for some X sessions, and I'm going to just make the most of several days in Atlanta at the end of
Good.
March.
Good, good.
So
That's
yeah,
exciting. And you're heading to Mabo 2020, right?
I am coming to Mavo 2020.
Perfect. Perfect.
It sounds so far away, but
It
it's not.
does. It sounds far away, but it's actually not. Like, thanks so much
Yeah.
for joining us today. And it was an
Oh,
honor to have you on the show. And we wish you the best of luck in everything. So we want to hear an update soon about how everything is going. But thanks again.